DNA is not just the genetic code that makes proteins in our body, but in fact, it actually protects us against the environment. What do I mean by that? Well, look, anybody who's ever sat in traffic for a long time, on a sunny day, you're getting sunshine pouring in through your windows, or you're out at the beach, and you're not wearing enough sunscreen, you get ultraviolet radiation, DNA damage, mutating your skin. Anybody who's ever smelled secondhand smoke, I mean, I hope people don't smoke, but if they don't smoke, even if you smell it from somebody else, that's DNA damage. That just smelling that will damage your DNA in your lungs. Or how many people fill up their car at the filling station, right? Do you stand upwind or downwind of the hose? If you can smell that fuel, DNA damage. The good news is that your body, the DNA, it knows how to protect itself. So it fixes itself, rebuilds itself, it caps itself off with the telomeres. It does a lot of things to protect itself. You called it epigenetics. These are all mechanisms that really help us maintain our functionality of our DNA. And the great news is that foods can actually influence that process.
Let's talk about some foods that can do that.
Well, one of the foods that you talked about earlier, turmeric, is actually a great DNA modifier. So basically, turmeric can uncloak DNA that is useful and even cancer-fighting DNA to unleash the protective DNA to help fight cancer. And it can also cap some of the DNA that might actually not be so helpful as well. And so that's one example of a spice that we can add to our food. Oh yeah, don't forget to add it with fresh cracked black pepper if you're actually using it for cooking. But those two ingredients are really important together. But I want to tell you some things that are like not as well known, like for example, kiwi fruit, right? Everybody's seen a kiwi. It's like this monkey ball shaped thing, furry. Cut it down the middle, open it up. It's got this bright green flesh, really juicy and sweet. It's packed with vitamin C and other vitamins. And there have been studies in humans, clinical studies, in which they've actually taken young people and measured their blood at the beginning and looked at their DNA, how well it does, how well it can protect itself. And then they gave them one kiwi and they ate them. And they measured after a couple of days that eating that one kiwi can protect their DNA, increase it by 60%. So you can just eat one kiwi a day and it pops up your defense mechanisms. If you eat 3 kiwis a day, it helps your DNA rebuild itself. So it actually repairs itself. So, here's a simple, lowly kiwi fruit, like I might have one for breakfast, for example, that can actually do a lot for you. Think about your DNA like yarn. That's like a big string, a big lump, a big pile of yarn. Going to wind that yarn up, right? So you wind it around something, and that's really what our chromosomes are. Our DNA is wound up into these X's and Y's that are packed inside our cells. That's really our genome packed into chromosomes. And at the very end, you can imagine if you're winding up a ball of yarn, you got to be able to get that yarn so it doesn't unravel to stick. And so you got to put a cap on it. The cap is the telomere. Physically, it kind of looks like the plastic tip on the end of a shoelace, kind of protects it and holds the thing to prevent it from unraveling. That protective cap on our DNA is part of our protection. Longer the telomere, longer we think we're going to live. Cellular aging. Shorter the telomere, the shorter these cells are going to live. And so one of the big areas of research right now, by the way, this research led to the Nobel Prize a few years ago, is what can we actually do to lengthen our telomere? So for those people that are, sort of the Ponce de Leon people looking for the fountain of youth, everybody's looking for things that actually keep our telomeres longer. Well, the answers are from research that I write about in my book might actually be already in our kitchens. So for example, coffee turns out to be a beverage that actually can not just prevent our telomeres from burning down like a fuse, it actually can lengthen the telomeres as well. So that's really quite an amazing thing that coffee can actually do that. But actually, it's probably more dietary pattern. And people that have good dietary patterns tend to be generally healthier. They tend to exercise and sleep better and all that kind of stuff. But the Mediterranean diet is one of the best examples of a whole food, primarily plant-based diet with healthy oils, seafood, and relatively low red meat and minimal processed foods. That combination tends to lengthen telomeres. And so that's really one of the amazing things. I have a colleague, Dr. Dean Ornish. He and I worked together on looking at sort of healthy patterns of diets. And we actually found, in fact, that healthy diets like the Mediterranean diets not only actually lengthen telomeres, but also at the same time, again, being Mother Nature being very efficient, actually are also anti-angiogenic that can protect you against cancer. So something that's good for the goose is probably good for the gander. Every grandmother's told their grandkids that you got to protect your immune system, right? If you don't have a good immune system, you're going to get sick. So we know the immune system protects us against infection, but we now know that the immune system also protects us against cancer and other serious diseases as well, as we talked about a little bit earlier. So what are some of the things that can activate the immune system besides drugs? I mean, there's a lot of things that can actually help our immune system, but food, is really a pretty powerful way to enhance it. There are foods that just can actually automatically boost our immune system by themselves. One of them is mango. I love mangoes. They're juicy, sweet, filled with fiber. They got lots of vitamins, and they also have bioactives. And I call a mango, by the way, a
stone fruit.
Well, mango is a stone fruit, but I call mangoes and stone fruit grand slammers of foods. These are foods, a whole table of foods I have in my book that all activate all five defense systems at the same time, including the immune system. So you can slam it out of the park by eating these foods. Mango is one of my favorites. Tasty, juicy, sweet. You get vitamins, good minerals, and it actually contains these natural bioactives that actually can help boost your immune system. But it's not just mangoes. You got other things. Broccoli sprouts. Some people talk about living foods, right? Those are the young sprouting foods that have all the nutrients and the energy when they're just young babies. And later on, when they get older, they get distributed the energy on the whole bigger plant. Well, it turns out that broccoli sprouts have been studied to see if they can boost the immune system. And in my book, I talk about a research study where they gave young people in their 20s the flu shot. Actually, it's not a shot. They gave a flu inhaler to protect them against the flu. And it turns out that if they gave them also a couple of shots of broccoli sprouts made into a smoothie, that's it, a couple of shots of this a day, that you would actually improve the response like 20 times to the benefit protecting you against the flu. Boost your immune system. And when they even swabbed their noses afterwards, where the flu virus might live, they were like almost all gone. And so again, this is an example of a food that can boost up the immune response that we want to have to protect ourselves. So, you go to the doctor, you get a flu shot, but, what about having a smoothie made with broccoli sprouts as well? Final food I want to talk about is really mushrooms. So, some people love mushrooms, some people don't, but everybody should love them because, number one, they grow right from the ground. They suck up all those really nice nutrients from the ground. If it's growing in clean ground, we've got to protect our earth, have a good planet so that our food is really safe. But inside the mushroom, there is a natural compound called beta-glucan, that is found in the cap of the mushroom that we cut up, right, and eat, and that stimulates the immune system directly. But here's a real surprise. And regardless of whether it's a shiitake mushroom, a maitake mushroom, a portobello mushroom, or even the lowly white button mushroom, the ones that are they're not expensive at all. You can find them anywhere. But here's like the surprise, and I write about this in a book. The part of the food matters. So how many of us buy mushrooms and you cut off the tops and you're cooking with those, and you take those stems, you just toss them out? I think most people do that. Not everybody. But researchers have found that the stems, called the stipe, actually contains up to 3 times more beta-glucan than the cap. Cap is good, stems better. Next time you eat mushrooms, eat them both.
And I want to talk about, you've got red wine in here. What's going on with red wine? How does that make the cut?
Well, most of the studies involving public health looking at red wine have shown, surprisingly, that there's some benefits. Benefits your heart, lower risk of cancer, and other types of metabolic diseases as well. But the reality is that it's not the alcohol. It's never the alcohol that's actually the good stuff for you. I mean, alcohol might loosen up our nerves and make us feel a little bit better. But in fact, the good stuff that activates our health defenses came out of the grape skin. And that's why red wine is red, is it extracted out that natural dye and all those other good things that come out of it. Same thing as beer, by the way. The hops in the beer elaborate a natural chemical called xanthohumarol, and that floats up right into the beer. So, there's actually benefits of beer, mobilizes your stem cells, actually is anti-angiogenic as well. Lots of good reasons, but it's not the alcohol. So what I would say is that this is an example of how research really allows us to peel the layers back to figure out why something is beneficial and what is it. The tea plant, which grows in a bush, is picked a couple of times a year in places that actually have tea. Tea doesn't grow in bags on a plant.
Right.
It comes as little leaves, and they people that pick these leaves and they dry them out in the sun, and then in the case of matcha, they grind them into a powder. So in fact you're drinking the whole leaf, which is why it's more potent. But if you're just brewing the tea, it's the leaf that kind of like sticks around inside the tea bag or sits at the bottom of the cup. I just drink tea with whole leaves, and all the good stuff kind of just is coaxed out of the tea leaf or out of the powder into the liquid, which we then drink. So EGCG is one of hundreds of natural compounds, natural chemicals that are found in tea leaves, but it seems to be one of the most potent. It's certainly been the most researched. It inhibits angiogenesis. It helps protect our blood vessels from heart disease. It might actually lower our blood pressure, protect us against high cholesterol in the blood. Probably coaxes out stem cells as well. A lot of reasons to love green tea.